Now we can non-invasively determine if someone is neurologically stressed and at what level are they stressed. When I first say that, what comes to people's mind a lot of times, oh, well, my job's just stressful. That's the root cause. But if your body is not adapting well to that stress, it's building disease. But does that stress build disease or not dictates how your physiology responds to that. And that's where chiropractic really can be a game changer. And what's interesting about this is I'm not big into my image. So for some reason, it's maybe a like weird ego thing. This is a very vulnerable setting always for me.
To get your haircut?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Why?
I don't care. I'm just like, I dread it. It's like, I feel like just like, I can't wait till this is over. I've just never had like this, like, I feel like females and maybe males I talk to, but it's, females are the ones I know. They love it. And it's an experience and they love getting taken. I hate it. It's just like, not interested. I want to move on. So it's weird to have like this podcast, like professional leadership thing that I'm normally like pumped out and I'm like, I feel like
you're like totally in the deep end of the pool right now.
Yeah, but I'm a good swimmer.
Okay, that's good. I'll be gentle. I'm really interested in that because I'm just wondering, like growing up, did you have any interest at all about like your appearance as far as like the clothes you wore or shoes, or what were you like into when you were younger?
Well, I moved a lot. So when I was in Texas, I was into Cowboys. When I lived on the beach, I was into surfing. So yeah, I wanted to like kind of fit in, but I also was more like practical. Like what was...
Do you feel that because you moved around a lot, that was a way of like integrating with a new group of people since you were the new person to blend in and kind of like hide out versus stand out and be like the guy who's from the surfing area who's moving to the cowboy land?
Maybe
it's like, I'm still going to be, Coley from Fast Times at Ridgemont High, even though I'm around cowboy hats and cowboy boots.
I think when I was real little, my first move was Texas to Pennsylvania, and I got made fun of a lot for saying y'all and being more Texas. Whenever I moved after that, which was starting my freshman year in high school, the rest of my life, I loved embracing where I was from and bringing it to wherever I was going. Some days I'm in cowboy boots. Today I'm in Iroquois, and this is how I would dress on the Outer Banks on a Sunday going to church or something. But
I'm just wondering if that has something to do
with
it.
It could. I don't know.
The degree I don't have in psychology would lead me to believe
for sure there's
it's probably some coping.
I think I'm like I need to be in control. I'm a type 3 in the Enneagram. I'm an achiever. I position myself as like an alpha type person in a group. And so this is like I'm showing you my belly, vulnerable state.
Yeah.
And I like just whatever happens. So I feel like I pretend like I don't care.
Yeah.
Like what it looks like, but I do ultimately because I want to project myself as successful or competent or
I think that's a very natural human emotions to like want to be in control.
Mm-hmm.
And a great coping mechanism is to appear like you're in control. Like there's a whole phrase, fake it until you make it, right? Mm-hmm. So some hairdressers count their first day of school as day one, as long as much as time they've been doing hair. So if it took them 2 years to do school, and then they're on the floor in a salon for their first day. Oh, how long have you been doing hair? 2 years. Mm-hmm. So like everyone has, and that's like a way of hairdressers faking it until they make it.
Real.
And then the joke is like hairdressers say they've been doing 5 years for the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And then they can't wait for their 6th year to say, I've been doing hair for 6 years.
Yeah.
It's just funny to me. Like, look, dude, I think people should care about their appearance because I think for a lot of people, even if they're not like aware of it, their outer appearance and their inner confidence or whatever are very closely tied.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think a lot of, it sounds so shallow and vain to be like, well, make yourself look good. Mm-hmm. Well, I know people who've had really shitty days and they just come in for a blow dry. Mm-hmm. And I've seen the transition.
Yeah.
I've physically seen their body go from like down and out, kind of like a bummer. And they're like, you know what? I look good. And because they see how their exterior is what they want their interior to match.
For sure.
And so they see this and go, oh, this is possible. I know I can do the work on the inside.
Yep.
I know I'm into cars. You have like a really beautiful paint job on a car, but the engine needs some work. Can the engine get fixed? Absolutely. It just takes a little bit of elbow grease, but you can get it done. So you told me you wanted to grow your hair longer previously. So the question is, do you still want to grow your hair longer?
Yes.
Okay. Do we know where that end goal of how long it is?
I think that end goal would be, so I grew up on the Outer Banks mostly.
Where is Outer Banks? Is that North Carolina?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a barrier island on the east coast of North Carolina. And when I lived at the beach, I could care less about my hair. I worked, before sunrise till sunset was on the beach, surfed, and I had long hair, maybe to here.
Okay.
But in the ocean, kind of a year length, maybe a little shorter.
I'm trying to get mine even longer.
Year length naturally just did what it did, being in the beach. Since I left the beach, I went to school in the mountains. My undergrad actually was in psychology. All of a sudden, I had no idea what to do with my long hair. So my coping mechanism was just cut it off. Yeah. So now I'm in that next phase of, okay, I've had short hair for a while. Could I grow it out and not live at the beach, live in Austin, Texas, and still kind of...
I would say yes. I mean, I'm doing the same thing. Yeah. Like somebody asked me, like, what do you have surfer hair? I'm like, well, I grew up in Southern California. It's not that, conclusion to jump to. Even though I've never been surfing.
Yeah. We should go.
I would love to go surfing.
There's actually a wave park, which I used to say was blasphemy, but it's a lot of fun and a great place to learn.
One of my buddies, Chris from Southern California, they fly out here.
It's good.
He says it's really fun.
It's really fun. Yeah.
He also has a surf school. Huntington Beach.
It's no ocean, but it's cool because it's a controlled environment and you can really develop your craft and try stuff on the consistency of the waves that you want to get in the ocean.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds fun. This is all air dried. It's like you just kind of comb it, toss it.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to do right now.
That's fine.
But traditionally, as it's shorter, the top kind of lays back. And then as it's grown, I've just kind of kept pushing it back. And then it's kind of this.
Do you have any hard stops about what you don't want to do? For instance, I'm going to give you some examples. For instance, if I were to say like, hey, in the meantime, I would probably brush this all back. And then however it falls, how it falls. And then versus putting a defined part. Do you want something that's a very structured way of styling, but the outcome is more loose? Or do you want something that is very deliberate? Like you're going to style it one way, and it's going to stay that way. And then as your hair gets longer, and that form of styling is not serving a purpose because the outcome is now not desirable, then we go back to the drawing board and go, okay, I see this. We make those adjustments, but I'm saying to you that we make these adjustments, which they don't know yet. And probably they do, because they'll probably say them on the podcast, like such and such. We'll make those slight adjustments, and then it's going to get you through that next hurdle. I always look at like growing your hair out it's not a race because hair doesn't grow fast. So it's like a slow walk with hurdles, but you don't know how high the hurdles are. So you have to like, a little hurdle could be like a foot tall, then you have like a sort of 3 foot tall one. There's something just painful to get through.
Business is like that.
Oh yeah, totally.
My answer is that I'm a big fan of coaches and mentors and trusting experts. And that's a big why I'm here. So I'm open to suggestions, and I think you have a good eye for what looks good. So
appreciate that. So here's what I'm thinking. It's not about what we take off, it's what we leave. There's a couple things that I see that I feel will help make you feel that you have a little bit more control. When I say control, certain key things that will make your hair look to be a little bit more groomed without having to apply a lot of effort, right? So the first thing I see, which you can even look in the camera, is like these little pieces that are sticking out.
Yeah.
If I can get rid of these, when this starts doing this again, that's like your cue for time to go through and get that reshaped.
Right.
Because from about here down, that's going to stay relatively consistent for a while. We need to get this stuff right here at the top to get long enough that now when this gets long, it all comes back together. Right now, it's sticking out because this is actually in some ways longer because this part doesn't have enough to cover it. So I'm thinking what most of the work's going to be done is going to be down and through here. And then what I would do as far as, since you're not really like fussing with your hair too much, is I would just put something that has maybe a light hold into it, something, not like a crazy strong gel, just something, paste or something, if you're okay with doing something.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting is, so there's a company, Nose to Tail, that just came out with a tallow based hair product. Which is pretty cool. I'm testing it out. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are.
A big fan of if it works, it works. I have a buddy, his hair is like Slash from Guns N' Roses. He has curly hair and he was taking like really good care of it. And he was doing really great stuff. And he had a really high-end salon grade product, right? Well, he had it in his carry-on and it was too big, right?
Oh man.
So he had to chuck it. I think it was like a $60 product, whatever it was. A lot of money. He landed somewhere. I think it was like on a Sunday. Salons were closed, or a Monday, one of those things. So those are 2 days that salons are usually closed. And he's like somewhere in like, I don't know, let's just say it's like Wisconsin or something like that. And he went to like a Rite Aid or whatever, picked up something right there. And he was like, and I didn't know this because I saw him. I was like, dude, your curls are like perfect. He's like, you won't believe. It's like $8. And I was like, dude, it works. It looks awesome. And he's like, you're not like going to lecture me? I'm like, dude, it works. I'm a fan of, if it works, it works.
Right.
There are times where I absolutely, and this is like where like people in my industry would like want to, just crucify me for it. But I say stuff like, dude, if it works and it's not damaging the hair then it's great. I'm not a fan of like the Pantene products because that leaves a coating on your hair. Like when it comes to styling products, that I'm a little bit more like, you could find something that works for you for what you're doing outrightly. You could find it at like a product that's made by HEB or something like that.
Right.
I'm not against that. When it comes to like the hair care and all that, like I'm all about, like, dude, there's salon products. And sometimes the salon industry just really misses the mark sometimes because there's so many levels to like the corporate stuff.
Yeah.
You have like hairdressers creating input and then they're trying to match what the hairdressers want, but then they're saying like, well, the consumer data is this. Too many spreadsheets where you're like, look, help us out. Because if you help us out, sometimes we're going to help the client out. I've learned this is that client lingo and hairdresser lingo are like not the same lingo.
Right.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through, I'm going to work this. I'm going to get these little wingsy things. I'm going to get that all cut off.
Yeah.
But I'm going to make it so that way you towel dry your hair, put that product, may it be the paste that I'm going to use today or what you're going to use from nose to tail. I'm going to show you how to apply the product. So however I apply this is what I'm going to recommend you do something very similar. Cool. Product can be different, but it's going to be very easy. Either you can use your hands or use some sort of vented style brush or some sort of paddle brush just to brush it through. Then I'm going to show you how and why. And then your hair is just going to go. So you don't have curl like my hair. Right. You have a texture change around your perimeter of your hair. That's very normal, but your hair is predominantly pretty straight, no frizz. Nothing that's going to be another level of something to try to manage. That's what I look at. Management. That's all it is. So yeah, let's do that. And then I'm going to cut this. Your hair's probably about like 80, 90% dry, which is good. I don't need it to be wet. I need it to be more dry because that's how you wear your hair. I need to see like, oh, look, here's a previous haircut that you had where the top was longer and the sides were shorter underneath. I need to make this long piece work and blend. Even though I want this part to be as long, it's not going to grow out as well. So there's like mixing and matching some pieces. So it's not going to be what I may do on this side. It's going to look a little different on that side, but the goal is to make both sides have symmetry.
I've always complimented, well, not always. I try to compliment because I am truly amazed when what you guys see, when you see it, you got one shot really. Once you're a professional to make it work for especially more particular clients. And so they give you this vague description of what they want, but then somehow want you to produce exactly what they were thinking.
It's hard.
And it's almost like magic, it's pretty cool.
I'll tell you one thing. I feel personally, the clients that are more particular are my favorite.
Yeah, I can understand why.
They're more detailed.
Yeah.
They're the ones who are bringing in like photos. They have like a mood board. Like, I don't like this. I like that. And then sometimes they'll bring in like, I use all these hair products, and this is my brush. Like they come in with like everything they have at their disposal.
Right.
And I love that.
I don't know.
What I don't is these vague things like, I want something cool. What? What is cool?
Yeah.
You know what I think is cool? Probably not what you think is cool.
Right.
You know?
Probably one of your worst clients then, because I'm just like, you know what looks good. I kind of want it to lay that way. And other than that, go from there.
No, like at the same time, like even though you're very vague about exactly what you want, you're also being, to me, very clear about like the amount of effort you want to apply into it.
Yeah.
I know a little bit about your lifestyle. For everybody who knows, I actually know him. So this isn't like the first time I've met him. So I know about your lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I also know that you know, your lack of caring about your image may also be the fact that there's so many other things that matter more to you. And as time changes, that could also change as well, right? You have businesses, you do a lot of stuff. You're also very active in an environment where looking good and probably putting a lot of product in your hair probably won't help you. Since I know you went to hunting with archery.
Yeah.
So, you know, there could also be a reason of like, not like, maybe I want my hair short because why? It serves a functionality. So when I'm coming to look at your hair, I'm thinking like, all right, well, I need the hair to function easy.
Yeah.
And I need it to look nice, even when you don't do a damn thing.
Right.
If you were to get out of the shower, run your hands through your hair, it needs to look decent.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then once it gets longer, you might, when you start seeing what it's turning into, you may like 3 months from now be like, you know what? I don't want it to go any longer. I actually like this. I'm getting a lot of compliments, you know, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So sorry for talking about it like that, but it's, you're not giving me nothing. You're giving me a lot. And it's like reading in between the lines about what it is that matters to you. And I would say that if you didn't care, you wouldn't be doing this. Tell me, what is it that you do? How'd you get into it?
This is one of my favorite haircut conversations. And here's why. The first chiropractors, spoiler alert, that's what I do. My doctorate in chiropractic, which I'll tell that story in a second. But some of the first chiropractors in the East, like Taiwan, Vietnam, even China, were the late 1900s. B.J. Palmer, who's credited as being the developer of modern chiropractic teaching, and there were universities, just as med schools were starting to grow, and in the early 1900s, chiropractic school and actually doctors of osteopathy, like those are kind of the three different providers at the time. It was growing in the United States and spreading around the world. And one of the ways, when the Western medicine tried to expand to the East, and chiropractic, believe it or not, is a Western trained modality and healing profession, although it kind of gets pushed into the Eastern sometimes. But anyway, the doctor B.J. Palmer went to the East and he couldn't find anybody that knew Western anatomy the way we do. So what he found, the people that knew the anatomy the best, that had the most common language, were the barbers. And the barbers had a really intimate you may be aware there's some barber surgery history.
Well, that's where the whole barber pole comes from.
Yeah.
The red and white thing was really just like blood-soaked towels, from what I remember hearing. I remember there's actually something quite, I'm probably getting it wrong, but there's something very dark and bloody about that barber pole and how it was, the whole thing. I just remember reading about it going like, whoa. Our first doctors were barbers.
Right. Yeah.
So when you're telling me, like, before you even, I was like, I think I know what this is.
Yeah.
Because
so they found the Eastern barbers who were actually trained in Western, specifically cervical or neck anatomy. They were taught to adjust the upper neck and the cervical spine. And the first chiropractors in the East were barbers. That's where you went if you needed to be adjusted. If you had migraine headaches or couldn't turn your head or digestive issues, you might see your barber and see if they can adjust you, because they were the chiropractors of the East at the time.
Well, I'll say one thing. I definitely know that I've had clients say, oh, I have such a bad headache, so if I don't want to talk, don't take it personal. I don't take a lot of things personal.
Yeah.
But after the scalp massage and then the light traction through the massaging up here, that they go, like, I feel so much better.
Yeah.
I don't have the stress I did. And even just the way they tilt themselves in the neck in the shampoo bowl,
you can see it in the posture,
which can also cause for some people strokes, which is a crazy thing to think about. like when everyone gets sensitive about the neck, I'm always very, very asking people like, hey, if this hurts, we have to adjust your position in the bowl, not me actually adjusting the client. I don't know. I imagine my first day of doing something like that, I would just have like Steven Seagal, Jean-Claude Van Damme moments, like under siege, like, oops, you're a chiropractor.
A chiropractor, entrepreneur. I own chiropractic. Working on the beach. I worked ocean rescue for a fire department and started kind of in emergency medicine. Climbed the ladder, became a paramedic, worked in critical care.
You were actually like a paramedic, like an EMT?
Yeah. Yeah. So I get EMTs like 6 months of training, paramedics another 2 years, ambulances, rescue trucks. So beach. And then really by the time I was a paramedic, I was working in the mountains.
Okay.
Western North Carolina. So as the EMT on the beach, we called them supervisors on the beach, but like a lieutenant position on the beach. Got to do some pretty cool stuff. Had a truck, driving jet skis around, boats, just all the really fun action-packed stuff. And then I went to school, pre-med, got my bachelor's in psychology, headed to med school, and also did paramedic school while I was in my undergrad. Fell in love. So I worked ski patrol in Western North Carolina. I worked search and rescue, heavy rescue, worked on a rescue squad, worked on an ambulance, and was working my way up to fly in critical care, like the life flight.
So you were going to fly the helicopter or just work?
Oh, I was going to work on it. Yeah. So that's kind of the peak of the medical side of the paramedic rescue, kind of the best work in helicopters. Everyone argues about that, but that's what I thought was, the peak of that career. At the same time, I was taking the MCAT, applying to medical schools. My entire family, I often say, is medical doctors. I come from pretty big legacy of medical doctors for 3 or 4 generations. And so I was headed to be an ER doc. I was really passionate about it. I was decent at what I did. I taught it at the community college level and was a training officer on my shift. But during that time, I also saw some flaws in, at the time, what I called our healthcare system. Part of it is that it's mislabeled, and that's the consensus I came up to. I think it's a great system. I've used a lot of drugs and a lot of advanced research and technology to save a lot of people's lives. Here's the fatal flaw is you can't use the same system to save your life that you do to build health. The analogy is, if your house is on fire, you don't want the contractor there. You want the fire department. The problem is, as soon as the fire's out, the last thing you want is the fire department hanging around. You're like, get out of here. Thank you for what you did, but you aren't the team to do redo my landscaping, to redo my kitchen, to build my house, to make it come back to life. You're not qualified for that. You're the fire department. That inherently, I think, is where we have messed up in our culture. Is we call this system that's really a crisis care system, sick care system, we call it a healthcare system, but it really has nothing or very little traditionally to do with health and everything to do with saving people's lives or really stabilizing them until they can get to the point of actually working down the path of health.
You're not the first person to kind of describe our healthcare system I've cut that has called it more, not sick care, but they say, they feel that we're just managing illness versus really preventative, and they're just like maintaining different moderate levels of it. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean,
like they're not treating the source, they're treating the symptoms,
right?
And because they're not treating the core, the cause, they're just perpetually groundhopping. You do the same thing and you get the same outcome, but you're not actually, you're just treading water while the water upstream, you're treading water upstream. Like you're not like the trout jumping. It's a trout or salmon that jump up. Salmon. Yeah. The salmon that are jumping up. They're actually making some movement. You're just kind of like, well, and I've had people who are like, anesthesiologists and surgeons, and they've said very similar things.
I think we all agree, and it's really the consumer now that there's so much information. In the 50s or 60s when my grandfather was practicing, there was not Google, there was not the internet, and whatever your local family doctor said was it, right? You didn't have the ability good system. I think it's misappropriated. I personally don't, I try to avoid that system at all cost. My family avoids it at all cost, but we pursue health also at all cost. Now, as an educated consumer, which arguably we all have the opportunity to be, regardless of our background, we need to start maybe relabeling what true health is and how do we get there. And we start looking at our bodies like a garden, or we look at our bodies like a beautiful home that's being cultivated, or a forest that's being cultivated, and not just living from crisis to crisis, from fire to fire, or from flood to flood. With that, aka the consumer taking responsibility for their health, or the non-health worker, the individual, if we could take responsibility, things would become a lot more clear, and we would understand really what to do when and where to go when. The challenge is still what we consume as far as information goes. It's still really bought out by some pretty powerful industries in the pharmaceutical industry and political industry. And unfortunately, in the last few years, we've seen a lot of these things become political, which they're really not at all. A lot of problems get solved when we begin to define what they actually are. Is this a hammer? Great. It's used for hammering nails. Is this a garden trowel? Okay, we're going to use this to garden. We're not going to try to build a house with a gardening trowel, right? What is the appropriate tool for that situation? So the root cause of what health is, the World Health Organization, Grey's Anatomy, not the TV show, the textbook, most of the medical literature for generations has agreed that health is not the absence of disease. So it's not whether you currently have strep throat. Health is not whether you have high blood pressure or heart disease. Health is how your body adapts and how it heals. It also, in the definition, includes body, soul, emotions. Not soul, so body, emotions, holistically. The definition includes the whole person. So how well do you adapt? How well do you heal to the stressors? How fast can you return back to health? How fast can you return to homeostasis? The more efficiently you can return to homeostasis, the healthier you are.
Okay.
Right. So what they're doing in I'll call it the sick care system, is they're making sure that you have a chance to start working on returning to homeostasis. They're not really trying to get you back to homeostasis. They're trying to stabilize you. Then they discharge you and they say, okay, go find out how to nurture and heal yourself.
So we're talking about the healthcare system. So you basically had this epiphany when you're studying. Did what? You wanted to be a general practitioner? Or is that
an ED doc, emergency department, ER doc. I really loved emergency medicine. I was good at it. I worked about 2 hours from a level 1 trauma center. That meant I was stabilizing and keeping people alive for a long period of time. I had a kind of unique job in a very rural area that gave me an opportunity to really do a lot and provide a lot of care and learn a lot and become good in that space. I thought what I was doing was really saving people's lives. And inherently I was. Until one day I walked into a house. There was an older gentleman sitting in a chair, and he was struggling to breathe. He had pulmonary edema, which means his lungs were filling with fluid. So he's basically drowning sitting in his chair. So we did what we did. We stabilized him. We basically forced air into his lungs, gave him drugs to pull the fluid out. Basically, we're loading him up in the truck so we could slow down for a second because he was stable and breathing, with assistance. And I went back into the house to try to determine all the different medications he was on, because that really helps the physicians when they get to the office, or when they get to the hospital
office.
It's theirs. That's right. And I talked to his wife, and he said, could you let me know what medications he's on? And she said, oh, honey, they're in the kitchen, on the kitchen table. So I round the corner to the kitchen table, and I see what is probably a 5 or 6 foot table filled with medications.
We're talking like what, 20?
More.
Really?
Probably over 20. It was
like over 50?
Somewhere in between there. All right, let me put it this way. I had to grab a garbage bag and fill the garbage bag, or use the garbage bag to carry all the medications out with me to the hospital. I didn't have time to look at them or write them down.
That's a lot.
So here's the kicker. So we get him to the hospital. I hand the bag of medications to the ER doc and go back. Don't think too much of it. We get ready for the next call and go on. So 3 months later, we get another call to a chest pain patient, and it ends up being the same address in the same house. We find the same guy in a different crisis that we had to stabilize and rescue him and get him to the hospital. And the only difference between him that day and 3 months prior was another medication on that table.
So it got even bigger.
It got bigger. And I realized, it was a light bulb moment for me. What was happening is these patients would get great care. They would get stabilized, and man, again, a great emergency system. They would spend about 3 or 4 days on the floor of the hospital. As soon as they could come make it on their own, managing whatever blood levels were being managed with the meds, they would be sent home. Nothing else would change. And I saw this circle, or this really a merry-go-round, and we call it the medical merry-go-round, and I realized that day that I needed to do something to step in and fill the void for those patients. They needed somebody to show them really what health is and how to get it, and not just live from chemical to chemical or from symptom to symptom, or take another medication for the symptoms of the first, second, or third medication. And so I started a journey of really looking for other options. And honestly, it led to a lot of incongruency in my brain. I struggled a lot finding a path to be able to provide care for people that felt congruent to kind of where my heart was leading and what my brain had seen. I considered practicing out of the United States because I thought, okay, maybe the healthcare problem is just the United States. That's not totally true. There's still problems outside of the US, but they're better. You know, the US is ranked dead last when it comes to chronic healthcare of all industrialized countries.
One thing I've learned over time is that there's a lot of common words. I mean, it's the word that you just said, chronic. I'm not referencing the Dr. Dre record, chronic. You only know that.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking,
yeah.
What is it that is the definition that they use to define? I have an idea what chronic medical issues are, but it's very different when you have the actual definition by the people saying it.
I definitely can't quote it exactly, but in a paraphrase, layman's terms, a chronic health condition is a condition that is really related to time, meaning that there's a good chance the patient is going to be managing that medical challenge for most of their life and for extended periods of time.
Is that different than debilitating?
Debilitating is really a level of severity, but chronic is a chronology. Debilitating is like the amount of pain that could then lead to a disability. So the pain might be debilitating and that keeps you from doing something, or the pain could be chronic, meaning you endure it for a long period of time.
So let me just kind of like put it even like a more of a simplistic term.
Sure.
Chronic would be how long the air conditioning is on.
Mm-hmm.
So it would be a time.
Yep.
Debilitating is the intensity of the air conditioning. Like how cold does it get?
Yep.
So you could have air conditioning on at 74 degrees and no problems. Mm-hmm. The minute you put it to 68, all your indoor house plants die, and now you have a problem. Am I right on this? Like intensity and time?
So yeah.
Or is there a better analogy?
An arm fracture could be debilitating time or debilitating pain, meaning that it keeps you from cutting hair because your arm, it hurts too bad.
It would.
However, that is not a chronic injury. The chronic injury would be arthritis in your wrist producing pain. Really, when we get into chronic conditions, that's really when my field really shines. And I think that's where health steps up to the table. With a chronic condition, this means that the medical system has done what they need to do to stabilize it. It's not something that really anyone has long-term answers for. And if you decide for yourself that you don't want that outcome, the chronic wrist pain or the chronic headache, you don't want a lifetime of that, then you pursue somebody in the functional health space, holistic health space, or a chiropractor, or PT. You're looking for solutions and a team really willing to put the work in to figure out why your body is not healing. Really important thing to define or address really quickly is that there's a major difference between the allopathic model and...
Hang on, you just used a word I don't know.
Yeah, allopathic is the traditional medical model.
Okay, so that would be like going to Kaiser.
Yeah, they use a pathogenic model of health, meaning that it is some sort of pathology, a bacteria, a virus, an injury or a lesion, often a very reductionistic body or perspective health. So we have the cardiovascular system. So you have a problem with your heart, you go to a heart doctor, a cardiologist, and they don't look too much outside of that. They address the heart symptoms, issues, and labs, and that's where they stay, which is great, right? If you have a heart problem, that's where you should go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. But again, that's acute, short term, go there. Long term, you can't. Our world would say that, okay, after the heart, as long as the heart is stable, the heart is not isolated in a petri dish. It's connected to every other system in the body. It's connected to your thyroid. It's connected to your gut. It's connected everything works through because the heart works. We call this salutogenic versus a pathogenic. So pathogenic is a bacteria causes the disease. A salutogenic model is really starting with the premise that the body is self-healing, it's self-regulating, so that your body, no matter what you believe, is always trying to return to homeostasis, which no scientist would disagree with that for the most part. But the body,
I guarantee you somebody will. I bet you somebody will come and be like, I'm a scientist.
Yeah, the body, that what separates us from a inanimate object like a car is that the body is going to adapt to stress in some form. It's going to attempt to survive, right? The human body, a living organism, has a survival value. It has a desire to survive, regardless of how big or small you scale that life. So yeah, both systems, both viewpoints agree to, whether it's a pathogenic or salutogenic model of health, they both agree that the body is trying to return to homeostasis. The salutogenic model, you're saluting or you're recognizing that ability to heal as superior and not something that should be marginalized and something that should be given more credit. So we would say you don't get sick because you're exposed to a germ. You get vomiting, pooping, we're getting a little gross here, but snot, coughing, all of those symptoms are not meant to be suppressed. They're meant to be supported because those are the body's byproducts, or that's the body's result of an internal healing process. If I have a stomach bug, as long as it's in within normal boundaries, meaning it's not an acute emergency, which that's a separate conversation, which again, we need to get better at defining what is actually happening. So if we have a stomach bug, you want to be able to vomit, you want to be able to have diarrhea. If you don't, you get a systemic or full body infection, and that can kill you.
I just look at it like sometimes when you have a really bad cut, right? Like, so I did a lot of skateboarding when I was younger, and sometimes you fall. Stop it. You fall when you skateboard, and you get some pretty bad scrapes, and you get like road rash and all that, right? I always felt that like before the injury, which would be like, pretty good, I don't want to use the word laceration, but like deep cut or deep gouge or whatever, it always looked worse before it got better.
Sure.
And it was like, oh, that's going to get infected. Funny enough, I actually, years later, and it was client explaining that like, that's the way the body is cleansing. It's like detoxifying. Like, it's like, if there's pus and goo, it's good because it's getting it out.
It's immune system.
Yeah. It was really interesting because the person who, I wish I could remember the name, who explained it to me was like very, very, classic medical doctor. But it was really interesting because he was explaining to me, like, that's good. That means your body's working.
Yeah.
He was also one who told me that like, this was probably back in like 2006, 2007. He was the one also telling me to like, never use hand sanitizer. It was just so funny. He's like, your body needs germs, dude.
Yeah.
He's like, you need germs. Like, what do you mean? It's like, the reason all the kids get sick when they go to school is around all these people and
they have no defense.
And that's the reason he asked me if I get sick. I go, I never get sick. He goes, yeah, because you're around a lot of people. He goes, were you more sick when you first started hairdressing than you are now? It's like, well, yeah. And he's like, I bet you if you ask all your clients who teach in lower grade, like elementary school, ask them the same thing. They've been doing it longer than 5 years. It goes, I guarantee you, they all said their first year they were sick forever. And I had asked a couple of clients who were kindergarten, first grade, things like that. And they all had this very similar story.
Right.
And funny enough is, so many years out of them teaching, now me doing hair for over 20 years, I like never get sick.
Yeah.
And like, if I do feel like I'm getting sick, I have like a very hippie approach to getting myself through that, which was recommended by a chiropractic doctor, funny enough, who was flying back in California. And I just kind of do that protocol. And within 24 hours, it's like, back on my feet. Don't have to worry about it.
We see that too. It's about a 24-hour window. And so you're working with the body instead of against it.
Yeah.
Right. Which is a salutogenic principle. It's saying, hey, my body knows exactly what it needs to do. How can I support it? Funny enough, every day that goes by, more and more literature comes out that says when we take things like Tylenol to suppress a symptom like body aches or fever, that we extend the illness. And on top of not only extending the illness from, let's say, 24, 48 hours, you could extend it to 7 days, 14 days, but it also has long-term chronic or negative effects on the body. So because I'm not a medical doctor and I don't prescribe meds, it's, it's not something we'll continue to go down, because I think you could have somebody on here that could really speak to that very well.
I was just going to say, like, I really think that, like, that's interesting to know. And again, like, I don't take Tylenol or Advil very, very regularly. Does it happen? And it's like my last resort.
Okay.
The first thing I usually, if I get like a bad headache, the first thing I think of is like, it's just dehydration.
To be, yeah.
And so I just, start drinking lots of water, anything like that. And then if it's still there by the end of the day, it's like, well, I need to get some solid rest. And then, maybe it just took a long time for my body to absorb all the water by the time the next day. Like,
headaches are such a great principle, or any kind of pain that kind of relates to this. So if you were cooking or
by the way, Peter, I can usually pinpoint where my headaches started. It was usually with an IPA and or margarita. So it's not like I wake up suddenly with a headache. I can pinpoint exactly
clear root cause to that toxic.
Yeah, exactly. It happened Saturday night, and that's why I had a headache Sunday morning.
That's a great kind of segue to really some principles that chiropractors really follow that support the Salsman model. And so really over 150 years now, before we knew, we meaning humanity, understood that the nervous system was electrical, we thought it was goo. We had no comprehension of electricity. Well, it was a new conversation in the late 1800s, early 1900s. So 1895 is when modern chiropractic was kind of first developed. And at the time, 1895.
Okay.
So arguably the Greeks, Egyptians, there's people have been kind of not clearly clinically adjusting, but, Hippocrates said, look well to the spine as the cause of all disease. So it's been a while, father of modern medicine. So that's not a new concept, but we didn't understand there was an electrical system that controlled everything, really, until we had a better understanding of the nervous system, which chiropractors really pioneered. And I think the second x-ray, it's not the first, or maybe the second x-ray, I got to look it up, but around, let's say the top first 5 x-ray machines in the United States were brought here by BJ Palmer, a chiropractor. And so radiographs were brought into, we'll call it medicine or clinical care. Really, some of the first were chiropractors. And also, if we remember in the early and late 1800s, it was not really well thought of to dissect the human body, meaning there was no, it was very frowned upon to have cadavers. And so investigating what truly smell. That is one reason. That's actually the formaldehyde that stinks. You're not smelling the to preserve it. Yeah.
I've smelled rotting meat that's been left outside before.
Yes.
Gross.
Yeah. So I mean, that's how we're trained in modern medicine and modern chiropractic profession, is we spend hundreds and hundreds of hours in the cadaver lab learning the anatomy on real anatomy. And until that became kind of well accepted, both in the medical, cultural, chiropractic, all the spaces, it was, honestly, discovery was a little bit slow. That's another history lesson.
What year would you say that really became the cadaver thing?
I don't know that I can answer that.
Okay. I didn't know if
it's around the turn of the 19th century that it started becoming more accepted.
Before the 50s or after the 50s?
Well, before the 50s.
Okay. Because I just felt like after the 50s, it was just like
exploded.
Everything did. Yeah. So that's why I was just curious.
Yep. So at that time, we discovered that your nervous system, even before we knew it was electrical, responded negatively to 3 types of stress. Called it the 3 T's: thoughts, trauma, and toxins. So any of those 3 things, negative thinking, negative physical stress, your skateboard fall, or your IPA, all cause a reaction or a stress response to the nervous system.
Individuals who have self-deprecating humor, where does that fall on the spectrum of thoughts? Is that they're doing it funny, or is that actually like a thought? Because you did minor in psychology.
I majored, but it was a bachelor's.
Majored, what I was pointing is like, if somebody has self-deprecating humor, does that qualify as a thought, or is that just like, more like, oh, they're just making jokes? Because there's people who make really self-deprecating humor all the time. And when you get to talk to them, they're kind of Eeyore. Is that just a way of them like trying to get.
You probably need to ask that question to someone with another 4 years of psychology on top of me, because I think you could get a much better answer. But my initial reaction is that there is no negative thinking or thoughts that are not adding value, that add value to life. So at the root of each of those situations is probably some psychological trauma.
Because I imagine like that person has self-deprecating humor. I'm wondering if it's affecting their nervous system.
Probably a defense mechanism. Yeah.
What do I know? I'm this guy that has dumb questions.
You should bring a good psychologist on here and ask them that same question. Predominantly what we see is people still to this day, we still look at those three stressors, thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And in our current culture, we talk about stress as this blanket thing that we can't control, and we kind of just use as this excuse, like, oh, I'm just stressed. Oh, I have shoulder and neck pain because I'm just stressed. I don't sleep just because I'm stressed. Oh, my job, I'm just stressed. And it's just this thing that we think, because we just call it stress, it doesn't really matter, but then it really does matter because it affects our life. But it's this excuse. It's like this excuse diagnosis. We kind of self-diagnose. Few people in our culture go one step below and say, okay, I understand that your work is stressful. I understand that you have deadlines. I understand that you experience stress. Yeah. What types of stress are being poured into your nervous system for how long, and how long have those stresses been applied, and to what extent is that negatively affecting your physiology, and is there something you could do about it? That's where many of our patients come in and they say, oh, I've had headaches for 15 years and I've shoulder and neck pain, but I'm just stressed. Well, okay, I understand that you are in a physiological state of stress, but do you even know what that means? Right? Do you know what's causing that? And I think when you start to unpack what does that actually mean for that person, then you start to get to the root cause of that stress and you start to get answers. And then guess what? Because we know the body's self-healing and self-regulating, you start to see those symptoms change and you start to see things go away. The very simple, simplistic explanation, we can get a little more complicated, but is if your hand was burning on a stove, or if I had longer hair and you were curling it with a curling iron.
I have really small curling irons. We could
try that.
We could try that. Yeah.
Well, if you really want to follow through this experiment, you would need to touch that curling iron and keep your hand there and just keep taking chemicals until the pain goes away while your hand's still on the curling iron.
I'm not going to have a hand left.
Right. So what is pain in that scenario? Pain is a defense mechanism. The body says, remove your hand from the curling iron, because if not, there's going to be more severe consequences. Does your hand on the curling iron produce stress in your body? Yes. Would you be stressed in that moment if you were forced to hold your hand on the curling iron? Yes. Are you also in pain? Yes. Should you ignore the pain and just say, oh, I'm just stressed? No. Should you cut off your hand because it's hurting? Should you inject your hand with painkillers so you can't feel it? No. Should you take enough drugs so your brain doesn't really know that you're hurting? No. You should remove your hand from the source of the pain.
The thing that I'm imagining right now is that people would agree to that because you can physically see the damage done on your hand.
Right.
What I'm assuming here is that because we can't see the damage being done internally on our nervous system.
Right.
If there was like a plastic body, you can see everything, every organ. Really, I try to take a drink, you see that, oh, the bile dumps into the stomach, you see how the body works.
Right.
And you're able to see through the bones and the central nervous system. You're able to see through that, right?
Yep.
X-ray eyes, we all can see that. And we were able to I could look, you go, wow, Peter, you're look at look at that. Whoa.
Yep.
Like people would probably take better inventory.
Absolutely.
Of what the stress is.
Yeah. That's how it's a big way the dentist industry grew, is once we were as a culture aware of what bad oral hygiene looked like, or what all of a sudden radically our whole culture got behind saying, hey, oral health matters and it affects the rest of your health. We say that a lot. If you had a window into your spine, you would radically take care of it. So what is that window? Is we do have tools to do that. We have digital x-rays. When someone sees an x-ray, man, it is a game changer. They almost always step up to the plate and say, this has to change. We also, one of the things that's I'm really loving that we're able to do now, thanks to modern medical research and technology, is that we're able to get a very good and accurate objective snapshot of people's nervous system now in our office in under 15 minutes. We measure really 3 distinct markers to determine that. So now we can non-invasively determine if someone is neurologically stressed and at what level are they stressed. And then we can start the digging process, or In functional medicine, they call like peeling the onion until we can find the root or the cause of that stress. When I first say that, what comes to people's mind a lot of times, and you may be thinking this too, oh, well, my job's just stressful. That's the root cause. But let's go back to the definition of health is how well does your body adapt to stress? So yes, your job may be stressful, but if your body is not adapting well to that stress, it's building disease. Your body could, because you're a human being and very good at adapting to stress, adapt in a non-negative way and not build disease. So the job is a constant. It's going to be stressful, but does that stress build disease or not dictates how your physiology responds to that. And that's where chiropractic really can be a game changer. If you're negatively responding to that stress and it's building disease, if we can figure out what pathology is causing that and how to reverse it, then all of a sudden you're able to adapt to stress better. Here's a really silly example, but
I love silly.
Let's say you were told that you're foreclosing on your house, you can't cut hair anymore, and you owe an extra $100,000 in taxes.
I'd say wake me up from this fucking nightmare.
Right.
I don't like this.
And then you stub your toe. Like pretty hard if you stub your toe. Yeah. You might literally, that might be the thing that stub toe may in your mind that day be as bad as a $100,000 tax bill because your threshold to handle that stub toe is very low.
It's gone.
It's gone. And you may be just like, that's it. I'm going to the ICU. I can't handle this stub toe. Right. Another day when everything's great and you actually find out the IRS owes you money, get a big check in the mail and your house is paid off and your business is thriving and you just came back from a great vacation, then you stub your toe. It's just a stub toe.
It hurts.
It hurts. Okay, I'm okay. I moved past it.
But like you're not canceling your day for it.
Right. Again, it's a silly example, but that's your threshold to handle stress. Many of us in modern society have a very low threshold to handle stress. Stress it's true. It truly is killing us, but it doesn't have to, right? It could, like gravity, like we would die without gravity. Gravity is a positive stress. Without gravity, we see this from astronaut studies, your body slowly breaks down and disease builds without gravity. So stress can be one of those things in a human, not a rock. This is the difference between you and a rock, is stress helps you grow and get stronger. Stress in a rock breaks it apart and degenerates it. A healthy response to stress is really everything.
There's also another thing I'm thinking of when people are saying they can't cope with the stress of like maybe their job is then they try to cope drinking or another substance.
More stress.
Yep. So so you're at that point, you're just adding more fuel to a fire. Right. Instead of it being maybe isolated in one part of the body, it's now spread to the rest of the farm. So it's not just the farmhouse. It's now the crop, the neighbor, it's all the land nearby. Am I making this?
Absolutely.
Now
absolutely.
First
and to some credits in case you're, the earlier conversation maybe turned you off, but I sat down with a couple medical doctors in this last month. Really, now that we understand this, you can really understand that saying, okay, when that stress builds up and becomes a fire, you need a fire department or you need a medical doctor to give you medication to put out that fire. But then you also need somebody on your team to say, okay, like where the human, when the average American gets really frustrated with their medical doctors is when they ask questions of the fire department that you really should be asking their gardener. And so when you're asking the medical doctor, how do I eat healthy or how do I exercise or how do I adapt to stress better? They're like, well, this doctor doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, yeah, he does know what he's talking about. He's trained to put out the fire. He's trained to give you a medication. He's trained to frankly save your life so that you have time to start gardening and building. And that's where I think the public needs some encouragement and needs people. That's where my profession needs to do a better job of saying, hey, I'm here to be a part of your team. I'm here to be a part of it. Rebuilding your health, rebuilding your garden, rebuilding your life after the crisis has kind of been stabilized.
I really think like what you're saying to me is like, again, I'm going to put in a silly analogy. You have a car. You may take your car to the dealership, right? But in that dealership, right? And this is probably the biggest issue, I think, probably with like maybe the healthcare system that we're kind of talking about is like, let's say you go to a place that can do all the things medical, right? But they don't ever have all the things medical. Like you have to go to your heart specialist. You have to go to your arthritis person. You got to go to somebody who deals with cancer. You have to go to these treatment centers, these isolated buildings, right? But when you take a car to, let's say like Mercedes,
Right.
Guess what?
They have the whole team there.
They have a whole team, and there's someone who deals with balancing your tires, rotating your tires, one who deals with all the electronics, someone who understands all the air conditioning, somebody who does with the engine, somebody who knows how to do with the body, somebody who knows how to do with the transmission, right? You have somebody is a specialist, right? But you can take it to one place, but the whole team there is working on your car.
Right.
And I feel it's probably one of the biggest disconnects.
Right.
And like when you're talking about eating, as an example, this person knows what they're talking about. The one thing it's funny that I keep hearing from clients over the years who are in medical is the importance of food.
Right.
And how insurance companies seem to be the roadblock with getting somebody who's a registered dietitian or a nutritionist involved in this thing, right? And from having a friend who is a registered dietitian, and he did wonders for me with my goals, whatever those were at the time, I found a huge change of how I felt once I was able to go through and find out how food was adding stress to my life because of my work schedule.
Right.
Funny enough, for the first 10 years, everyone told me I needed to eat lunch. And then so many years later, everyone's like, have you heard of this new fasting thing? You don't eat for 12 hours. And I'm like, I've been doing this forever. I've always felt like there's like everything popular, may it be diet, medical, belief, it all started off as the fringe. And then at some point, it becomes more normalized. Like Asim, I forget his name, but he was the doctor who said that sugar was a bigger cause for heart attacks, more or less, than eating animal meat, right? Well, when I heard that, I was like, well, that makes sense. Like after I read his thing, and I had a client tell me about that, what had happened. He was ridiculed, right?
Right. Yeah.
And it was interesting because I also, and I had heard another person describe fringe ideas relating to nature. And so I had a client recently, and she was a veterinarian, horses. I asked her about what somebody had told me, and this guy was very well read, like very well, like, Renaissance guy. He had mentioned, it's like in nature with wild horses, right? You have wild horses. Have you heard this before? About horses and like when they're in the nature and wild, like when you have like herd, like this pack of wild horses just going. The ones on the outside are called the fringe.
Oh, no, I haven't heard that.
Oh, it's really cool. So the horses on the outside are called the fringe. They're there to shift the direction to keep the rest of the horses out of danger.
It's good.
And he told me this back like in 2008 or something like that. And it kind of made me always think when somebody would say like, oh, well, that's a fringe medical profession.
Right.
I was like, that's interesting because in horses, it actually protects them.
Yep.
And then you have that guy, Asim, the doctor who, about the sugar in the heart. And he was considered a fringe doctor, working in a mainstream establishment. And so when people talk about chiropractic work, they're like, oh, that's quackery. That's a fringe medical profession.
Yeah.
And I always like challenge somebody who says that. Like, well, so how you, I go like, I've had great benefits from this.
Sure.
I do feel that like the backlash when I talk about like, oh, like my favorite doctor was always my chiropractor. And I was like, what? And I'm like, dude, I'd get adjusted.
Yeah.
And my body's physically labor intensive.
Yep.
And it's like, why is it that like every sports team has a chiropractor?
Right.
If it didn't matter, it wouldn't be on these multi-million-dollar athletes. That's just I've always like challenged it. Like we all know that like, again, I felt like our athletes get the best medical because they're getting the most comprehensive 360 that people just don't get.
Right.
Am I wrong on that assumption?
No, you're totally right. What's funny,
sorry about that. Like to go in, it's like,
I'm going to keep going with your horse analogy. It's illegal the day of a race, at kind of the top tier of horse racing, which is not my thing. So I won't comment too much on it, but it's illegal the day of a horse race to adjust a horse because it's performance enhancing.
Wait. So if you own a horse and you're doing the big Kentucky Derby thing, right? You cannot adjust the horse because it's considered performance enhancing.
Yep.
And why is everybody making a big deal of that, saying like chiropractic stuff is like, well, it's not real medicine?
Yeah. There's history to that. I can explain it.
What? Seriously?
Yeah. And we see performance go up through across the board, left and right. Now that we're able to measure more and more in the nervous system, I mean, our whole culture is into this. Like, think about the Whoop watches, or the watches that are tracking your sleep, sleep trackers. They're measuring something called HRV, or heart rate variability, which is really a measure of autonomic nervous system.
Okay.
And so we have, that might be a couple $100. We have tens of thousands of dollars in a similar technology. We're measuring the same thing, but a lot more specifically in our clinic. And that measure of the autonomic nervous system is, so autonomic, think automatic, right? So you have
auto,
right? Autopilot,
like automatic transmission. It does it without you.
Right. So that's, your nervous system has two sides. It has a fight or flight
manual transmission,
or it has a rest, or your gas pedal.
Okay.
And then you have a brake pedal. So the gas and brake, you need both to drive. You can't just have one or the other, right? So the brake pedal is rest and digest. It's the mode that you need to be in most of the time. Same thing with a car, right? You accelerate, and I'm sure we can find excuses here, but in my analogy, we need the brake pedal the majority of the time to safely drive. We'll say that. If you're stuck with the gas pedal on and someone has cut your brakes or compressed your brake lines, that is how most of us live in a stressed out world. That really is stress. That's stress being stuck on. Stress is stuck on in the nervous system. If you're too much gas pedal and not enough brake, too much sympathetic, not enough parasympathetic. So we measure that, and the way to measure that is through heart rate variability, which is the variability between contractions. So another real easy example is if you digest food and we were to monitor your heart rate or the variability between it, it needs to be more variable. Talking, breathing, digesting, it's going to go up and down all over the place. Mm-hmm. And not just the beats per second, but the space between the contractions. If a lion came into this room, yes, our heart rate would go up, but it would also become more consistent. It would be very steady. It would not be variable, because your brain and your body needs to get blood flow to your extremities so you can act. A non-erratic, which it sounds like the opposite, but a non-variable heart is a stressed nervous system. And so we have a very clear metric now to measure neurological stress. It's pretty phenomenal. So anyway, our culture is getting behind this. We were talking about this in performance. Athletes are measuring this like crazy. When it comes to an Olympic athlete, Usain Bolt has a chiropractor. He also has scoliosis, reportedly. It's not my patient. The public knows this. So supposedly has scoliosis. Allegedly. The page 6 New York Post is he's not my patient. One of the reasons chiropractors or athletes love chiropractors is they measure their health and their performance in milliseconds. And so the faster your nervous system can flow from your brain down your spinal cord to every organ, cell, and tissue in your body, including your muscles, the faster the muscle is going to contract.
So if you already have like fast twitch muscles, they're going to be even faster.
Right. And slow twitch muscles will be even stronger, because strength is a measure of the speed that the nervous system can flow over those tissues. If you care about strength, if you care about performance, you care about the nervous system. If you care about your heart beating, you care about the nervous system. If you care about your stomach digesting food, you care about the nervous system.
I do care about all these things. I wasn't being quiet. I'm also trying to find this. There's like this weird little like weight line when your hair falls down to here. And I'm just I'm doing is I'm going through and just blending that. So you'll notice like I haven't done any hard lines, because as it grows out, I need things to blend. And then when it gets to a certain point, then it's going to be about like, okay, well, I want this to be this length and I want to be more defined. Right now, I'm trying to get something. So as time goes on, we don't really see what the haircut started as. It's just what it is at that moment, which is a longer hair. Right. So that we're not seeing like, oh, that's a haircut that's grown out. Because most guys, when they grow their hair out, they do two things. They'll do what we're doing, which is we'll cut and make adjustments and go on, which is the way I recommend it. The other option is what I did, because I was going through a time, well, obviously the last couple of years, people weren't seeing each other for a while. So I was allowed to grow my hair out and not have to, and then go through those, I call ugly and uncomfortable stages. I'll just put on a hat, right? Yeah. And everybody does that to a certain point. And then what happens is the haircut is so bad, then they have to deal with it. And they're like, okay. And then usually they just go, I'm just going to shape it all over.
Yeah, I was pretty close to that.
Well, this is what I'm saying. I'm walking you off the cliff, buddy.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so we talked about there are three stressors that influence the nervous system: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. And we know that the nervous system controls everything in the body. Nothing works without it.
Yeah.
So then the question is like, how does the nervous system, how does it get blocked, or how does it get shut down, or how does it get affected, right? And I think another, we're on the cheesy, easy example train, so we'll keep going, is if your cat walks into the, I don't know if you have a cat.
I don't.
Okay, I don't either. I'm not a cat person, but for the cat people out there, if your cat were to walk to the front yard, I know. I love cats in this example. You'll to hear that.
And other examples.
Another example.
I'm going to send you a really funny blog post about a cat.
Okay. Privately.
Oh, it's funny. Yeah. I mean, if anybody wants to look it up, just type in missing Missy. And it's like 27B something, whatever's the website. It's this Australian guy who has these really funny blog posts.
Yeah.
And this is by far the most comic. Awesome.
I'm okay with haters, by the way. They fuel me. But don't hate me because the cat thinks I don't really hate cats. Just not a cat person. So, all right. So the cat's out in the front yard.
I'm kidding.
Like,
I don't hate. I just wanted to like give you some. No, I don't hate cats. I just know that when I've been around them and I touch them, then I get really congested.
Mm-hmm.
I turn around that cat for like a really long period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Then I don't. So like short term, not a fan of me being dumb.
Is that your problem or the cat's problem though?
I get if I pet a cat and then like I rub my
you're allergic to them.
Yes,
or sensitive, hypersensitive.
I would say I'm sensitive. I would say I'm allergic. I would say that like there's a physical reaction, which would suck to see that same physical reaction. Like I've always had a dream to want to play with baby tiger cubs.
Yeah.
And I'm worried.
Maybe it's different dander. Maybe
I want to. I need to know
who has baby tiger cubs.
I want to just roll around with one.
We need a hookup here.
Yeah, it's like a little baby. You know when they talk about genetic engineering animals?
Yeah.
Why can't they make full-grown lions and tigers like the size of like, I don't know, like a Labrador? Or even smaller. Like I just want full size. Like
nothing could go wrong in this scenario.
No, nothing. The other thing I also thought, like you talk about bringing back dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just make them the size of chickens? Like imagine like a whole herd of brontosauruses just roaming through your backyard, the size of a chicken.
Yeah, that's kind of the reason why. Well, number one, we've all seen Jurassic Park, and there's some little dinosaurs in there that are pretty scary.
We're selectively making them. I'm saying little brachiosauruses and brontosauruses.
Now you're saying, though, that humanity has the self-control not to abuse that opportunity.
I mean, I would have self-control.
In this scenario, you may not be the problem, but I'm sure there's someone out there that would create the problem.
Well, that's human nature. Absolutely. I'm just saying, I've always just thought it'd be really fun because then
it would be fun.
You could take like, or like, what about little miniature camels?
All right. Now, okay, you're getting somewhere.
That'd be fun. That means like any standard sandbox a child plays in, it would be also enough.
Well, we've kind of done that with dogs, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like think about poodles. You have a standard, right?
Right. You have all different
smaller poodles, and then you have a miniature, and then you have teak, which is even smaller than miniature.
I'm not a veterinarian or a biologist, but I remember reading somewhere that you can look by the length of the snout and the pointiness of a dog's ears, how far it is removed from the wolf or from its genetic origin. And I don't know if that's true or not, it's just what I've heard, but basically the long floppy ears, shorter snout animals have been extremely bred to achieve that look.
Yeah.
And the less dog-like they will act. All right. So a little bit of distraction. Let's go back to the cat example.
You and I are horrible. We both have like ADD conversation.
Yeah. Which,
what?
Should we talk about ADD for a second? Related to,
I don't know. Am I going to get banned for it? Like,
I don't know. All right. So let's talk about focus, not ADD. Let's talk about focus. So hypothetically, focused is done by the frontal cortex, the front of your brain. And the front of your brain is also what we mute when we drink those toxins you were referencing before. It's where inhibition is predominantly produced. Or the ability toxins suppressions. They suppress things. Yeah. Shocker, right?
Now I understand why people act that way on tequila.
Yeah. So inhibition is also in the frontal cortex, critical thinking. That's what really makes us human, arguably. There's plenty of arguments for that, but one of the arguments for humanity is the frontal cortex firing. The frontal cortex really is developing all the way up until 25 in some ways, and some people were still working on it. But really, the brain develops.
That's this episode. And some people are still working on it.
But the brain develops neurologically, starting in the notochord. Sorry, let me go back. In your mother's womb, the first thing to develop in the body is what's called the notochord, and it's the precursor to the spinal cord of the nervous system. And then everything really grows off of that central nervous system, like a tree. And so that's another huge win for the nervous system. If you were doubting its importance,
First thing that's
everything, it's the first thing that forms, and everything grows off of it and is connected to it. Everything, absolutely everything. It governs and controls everything. And then as the baby grows, really pre 3 months prior to birth, we have the brainstem, spinal cord, and the cerebellum, which is responsible for movement. That's the base of your skull.
Yeah, I was going to say that's back.
Yep, back here. And so the brain then from 0 to 2 develops, we say bottom up, back forward, right? So brainstem, cerebellum, amygdala, which is your emotions, hypothalamus, midbrain, memory, language, and then...
Sorry. Well, I'm stunned by this.
I'm just using inhibition too. So then the frontal cortex, which is your inhibition, develops. We were talking about focus. Okay, so if you experience, especially as a child, experiences stress in that developmental window, let's say 0 to 2, and this could be, remember the 3 types of stress? Quiz, 3 T's, thoughts, traumas, and toxins. If they develop that stress in that developmental window, it can prevent the healthy development of other aspects of the brain, can dramatically affect focus. So a lot of the root of the root of a lot of focus, and I'm not an ADHD expert, so I'm talking about focus, but the root of focus challenges is that the brain is stuck in a stress state. So this really links me up to this cat. I got to get this cat story out. The cat's in the front yard and the dog.
Push the cat out of the bag.
I'm going to let him out of the front door in the bag. Man, they're going to hate you for putting cats in bags. That's where the hate's them.
I didn't put it in the bag. I said let it out of the bag.
Okay, all right.
I didn't say
so. We're freeing the cat.
I said let the cat out of the bag.
We're freeing the cat.
It's an expression.
We're freeing the cats, but then all of a sudden the cat gets out of the bag into the front yard and there's a dog there. So what does the cat do? What does the cat's body do? Let me rephrase that.
It
right.
Back arches and they go.
So that makes a noise to me. Yeah, the shoulders come up to the ears. The skull actually goes into what's called flexion. And the atlas, the very top neck bone, goes into what's called flexion. We're looking down, and the skull goes into extension. Almost all the vertebrae in the spine go into this flexion state. Yeah, like flexed. Yeah, right. What do you look like? Could you show us what you look like when you're on your phone?
Oh my God.
I don't know. Sorry, when you're texting. You're old, and you still talk on your phone like that?
Well, now I do this.
Okay.
Or I'll set it down.
What if you're sending a text or on a computer?
Oh, if I'm set. So we're like this.
All right, yeah. All right. That's our culture.
It's over, yeah. In hairdressers, by the way, we're like this all the time.
Like this, or if you're on a computer.
Hairdressers, we're standing like hunched over. We're like this. This is like our... How do you know your hairdresser's not seeing your hairdresser?
You're a cat in a fight.
I've always, you'll vlogging, see me, like you'll see I'm always doing this, and I'm counting to try and like contract my muscles.
Right.
And I'm always trying to like have as much posture.
So you're like the cat that the dog never leaves. The cat never gets used to the dog, and the dog never leaves the cat, but the dog never actually attacks the cat. It's just kind of always there. So that's like stress being stuck on. So how do you know a human has stress stuck on? They look like the hairdresser, right? Or they look like the cat in a fight. They look like the computer programmer. They look at like really go to Walmart or probably shouldn't name stores here, but the mall or any store, any place, any culture, any movie theater, any dance hall, anywhere, and you look at people's posture.
You mean club?
Or club. Sorry, I'm from Texas. You look at people's postures, and they all look like the cat in a fight. And what's happening to their physiology is you have the structure. So you have a pretty brilliant body, by the way, which we kind of hinted at. But in this brilliant,
hard. I work hard for this thing.
Yeah, man. So that's a different compliment.
No, you're talking about in general the body.
Yeah. So but yes, even you,
I'm teasing
you or the person walking down the street, or even myself in this chair, we all went from 2 cells to 70 trillion inside of our mom's womb with no help. It just happened, right? Starting with the notochord. Well, starting with embryology, first organ system is the notochord or the spinal cord. Then we have this armor. So we have this armor that protects this brilliant system. It's called the spine, right? But it's not just a block of armor. It's movable. Even the skull is arguably movable up to a certain point time, but you have 24 movable segments in this spine and in this armor. That's what actually, and then you have muscles connected to tendons that move that armor around. And so the cat's armor moves and changes its physiology. And so Grey's Anatomy, again, not the TV show, but the textbook, says that structure dictates function. Structure dictates function. So if we want to improve the function of our body, we want to improve the function of our physiology, we have to have a normal structure. So now all of a sudden, we're seeing disease rates skyrocket. We're seeing challenges of chronic stress leading to almost every disease on the planet. And you really look at the structure of the average modern human, it's abnormal. It's not just abnormal, it's stuck in a stressed state.
Question. How is that any different from people who used to like read the newspaper, read books? It seems like a very similar
good question. I'm sure there was a common PhD educator, professor, librarian posture that was probably still around in the past. But the difference is the amount of time. So there's an expression that is that's common now that says that sitting is the new smoking. And so what that literature has said is that we predominantly sit as a culture, and we don't just sit, but we slouch and we sit and we look down, and we do it for extended periods of time. Whereas people that read in the past read for maybe 15 minutes, maybe a couple hours, but the rest of the day, they weren't going to a computer and doing this, and then a phone and doing this, and sitting in the sofa and doing this. They would stand up, they would walk, they would work standing up.
If you're like, you probably were at a desk too, like reading, and it's probably down.
Yeah, but can you show me your writing posture? Like if you're writing at a desk versus on a computer? So maybe, but you're tending to
I would be like this,
right, and then look up. But yeah, I agree. I think,
and I'm not trying to like talk shit on it.
No.
Thinking like
we're just looking at the wrong snapshot of time. I think so. There's a de-evolution here. So maybe the severe end of the spectrum is 2023.
Yeah,
and I agree. People were writing, let's say, in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, or 80s, and early 90s. And their spines, though, compare it to someone that lived in the 40s or the 1800s or the 1700s, right? Or much worse. So I think what we saw is the amount of people, and I'm not an anthropologist here or historian, but if you look at 1700s, 1800s, early 1900s, the amount of people writing was much less than is writing today. And there's nothing inherently wrong with writing. The problem is how many hours you spent in that slouch position. So yeah, if we took away phones, and somehow we gave the same dopamine response to writing that we experienced with phones and technology, and we spent the same amount of hours writing that we did on a phone, it could produce.
The education system in the 40s and 50s and 60s was a little bit more different about, I hear stories about from my dad and my grandma, you couldn't slouch. Mm-hmm. They would actually call you out in class for
bad posture, poor posture.
Yep. That doesn't happen.
Right.
Could this have been something we maybe saw earlier?
Right.
These are all hypotheticals. This is just me. Like I hear something, my ADH style thinking, and I'm not diagnosed. I just feel that I relate to when people talk about you hear something, you just feel compelled to blurt yes, I do. Or as I say, it's because you have these memes that go around that say like, they thought that phones would, they show like people on a subway. It's like 1945, and they're all looking down with newspapers. And then it says like today, and there's a whole bunch of people staring at their phones, and they're trying to make the argument that this is just a new newspaper.
No, it's different. I guess the newspaper always has brought some stress. That's all another conversation.
Yeah.
I think there's probably better good news printed in newspapers in the past. But so now so remember the three stresses.
Whether it's in the new news, I think the meme is getting at the fact that like we're now like they thought that these smartphones were prohibiting interaction with people. Mm-hmm. And you look at a subway now and look at subway 30 years ago, everyone was still not talking to each other because they're all buried into a newspaper, they're burying their face into a book or something like that. Now it's just a cell phone or a Kindle or something like that.
Yeah.
And the argument I think is that society hasn't changed. We've just replaced one thing for another. But it sounds like the frequency of these books also weren't giving us notifications. They also weren't telling me, oh, by the way, I'm going to be late for dinner, or hey, can you pick this up?
Right. That gets into the T that is the thoughts. Psychological stress that's increased by having a task manager, and bad news and negative news, or your self-worth going down because you're comparing yourself to someone else while you're in that posture. So now your psychological stress increasing as your physiological stress is increasing.
Yeah.
Right. And that's how you get stuck in that position.
So how do you get out of it?
It takes work. Number one, I think you see a chiropractor.
And if you're in Austin, you should go to your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
You could do a shameless plug. I say that because I know that I've been to your place.
Mhm.
So like, I know what you do, and it's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And by the way, you can see yourself here. You can look at them in here, or you can look in here. So like I told you, I was going to handle this. I got rid of this long piece that was hanging down that made it look like an old haircut. So all you have to do is you can move your hands however you want. You're not going to have anything stick out of place. So as it grows out, it's going to have a lot more balance. And then, so you can put product in, you can let it just, all you have to do is right hands like through the front, to the back, and however it falls, it's going to look nice. So it's like as low maintenance as possible for somebody who stepped in here saying, I don't really care, but I know you do.
Yeah.
If you didn't care, you would have just kept shaving your head, right? Like I feel that all hairdressers have the same background and training. That's why some clients like a hairdresser more than in others because of their background. Is that a similar thing with chiropractic?
Yeah,
as well.
It's growing. And what the chiropractic profession, admittedly, I think has not done a great job until recently, is specializing or clearly communicating the specialties. In medicine, you know who to go to because they started specializing. I actually don't know, but around the 40s, 50s in that time period.
Yeah.
So if you go to your radiologist in the hospital or an imaging center, you may see a radiologist who's a chiropractor because they actually now have the radiology specialty. There are functional neurologists that are chiropractors because they have that specialty. And so there are different specialties officially. And then also within the subspecialty of family practice, varies state by state, there are different approaches to health. And so there are some chiropractors that have more of an allopathic or pathogenic path to health, and they are more pain-based. Their goal is to get you out of pain, and then you're good. We, on our side of the chiropractic profession and my clinics, are on health optimization focused. So we want the nervous system to function at at your 100%, whatever it is, not just be out of pain, right? We don't want to just move from crisis to crisis. We want to move from health achievement to health achievement. It takes a different approach to get there. And so I would say briefly, when it comes to the postural thing, there's a time and a place for PT. And I shout out to all my PT people out there. We love them. We refer to them constantly. They refer to us. Some people say, okay, I went to the chiropractor and my digestion got better. I went to the chiropractor and my breathing got better. My allergies went better. And I don't really get that. And we'll say, well, yeah, we don't really treat digestive issues or we don't treat breathing problems. So if you think about a pyramid, just real briefly, the way we fit in with PT or the way we influence something visceral like a medical doctor might treat is at this pyramid. At the very top of the pyramid, we have the viscera or the organs. So this is digestion, breathing, cardiovascular. Yeah. Right. In the middle, you have motor or movement, right? Structure dictates function. That's where PTs do an incredible job of really helping motor work, right? Helping movement. And then they can really influence the top of the pyramid because the better you move, the healthier you are. We all know that. There's another tier to this pyramid, which is the autonomic nervous system, right? That's the central nervous system. So the central nervous system has to work for the motor to work, for the viscera to work. And so what's really unique where, especially in the pediatric population, we've seen a lot of pediatric PTs really recognize this. They're trying to influence the nervous system or influence the visceral through movement, where we can really support and be on that on a patient's team, regardless of age, but it's really evident in the pediatric population, is we can evaluate that autonomic nervous system and help break that patient out of fight or flight, go use less gas pedal and more brake pedal. So then they can go to the PT and they can work on the movement, they can work on the big muscles. And then the positive outcome sometimes is that the viscera or the organ systems work better. A simple example is all right, so I'm in a chair right now, but if I sit up straight, right, and my shoulders are back, everything posturally looks good, right, which a PT can really help with. But then I shove my head forward, but I don't move my chest, and I try and take a deep breath.
So I love it.
Very shallow. I don't move my shoulders. I just bring my head back. Deep breath, right? That's the example of the structure of function. It could just be the pathology, could just be that someone hit me in the back of the head and now my head is stuck like this. So then I can just have a PT bring me back. Great, right? But what if the reason my head is forward is I've had too much physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. And the reason I'm like this is way more complicated than just a physical postural issue. What if it's ingrained in my neurology? What if it's my brain that has adapted to all these stresses over time and I'm stuck like
this? It's like where I'm at.
So you could try and force me back here, but it won't work until I realize that, oh, the dog is gone. The dog is out of the yard.
Yeah.
I can begin to relax. Then I do need some help. Right. So the chiropractor can break me on a fight or flight. Yeah. The PT can then help solidify the structure. And then the byproduct is better output of the viscera, like the breathing. Right. I think that's how that works together.
One of the things I visually thought was like your nervous system's like this big waterway. Right. And sometimes off these large waterways, you have, small creeks and all that. Right. But if you put a dam in, now not only does not water flow into that, side inlet of water, that whole ecosystem that thrived off of that water goes down.
Yep. It's a great analogy. Yeah.
And so I'm imagining like when people say like, well, like all these things got better. Well, yeah. What happened is you sent like, the forest ranger down the waterway and said, oh my God. So there's a whole blockage right here. That's the reason why. And then they clear it out. If you don't have somebody skilled enough to go through and like take the time, sounds like, to really go down the path of or the waterway with you, just to find out. Oh, well, we have these blockage. We know that they're blocked. We need to figure out why they're blocked, but we need to also get this removed. The only thing that potentially I'm imagining would happen would be only good things because it's not supposed to be blocked.
Right.
And the chiropractor for me and most hairdressers, I think, is we always talked about how it's just like our first go-to for everything.
We're not designed to be a last resort. We're designed to be a first step so that you don't need the last resort. So we can't help with everything, but that's step one is just to see if we can help, right? If we can help, we're going to determine that through a comprehensive exam. We're going to do our due diligence. That's why we have to be doctors, we're really trained in a primary care model, is to rule out the red flags and the things that say, nope, this is not us. Let's send you to that crisis system first and then come back here. Are your headaches a chiropractic problem or solution? Nobody knows, not even me, until I do an exam, until we figure out what exactly is causing it. If we can figure it out, we're going to get great results. If we can't, it's a different conversation and we'll help get you to the right spot.
Is the rest of the medical system as opened to chiropractic work now than maybe 20 years ago?
It's radically changing. Depends on how much time we have.
No. Look, we're going to also, this haircut, if you're still planning on growing.
Yeah, I know.
Well, as it gets to that next stage, we'll cut it and we'll talk again.
Sure.
But I'm just wanting to short
answer is yes. It's getting like most of my peers that are medical doctors. I have a lot of friends who are medical doctors my age, and I'm in my 30s.
They're recognizing it as a pillar of
absolutely
of the medical system, like as it should have.
Yeah, or the healthcare system. Yeah, I get a lot of referrals from PTs. I get referrals from orthopedists. I get referrals from pediatricians. I get referrals from medical doctors, which 20 years ago never would have happened.
To me, that seems like a great thing.
Yeah, it is a great thing.
Like when I hear people talking about like, hey, like we need to get your diet right. And so they're going to refer people to, nutrition, RDs, nutritionists and all that. Like I guess I'm like the crazy hippie guy where I've always believed like we put in your body, your body, and how you treat your body. If you bruise it, like I've always said, like athletes are in great physical condition for a reason. And it's because they're doing the things that we just aren't doing most, because we don't either have access to it because of insurance policies or whatnot, or no one really ever gave us like, hey, this is important.
Right.
I always look at athletes and I'm like, they're eating very strict diet plans and they're doing all these things that we just don't do. Like they stretch all the time.
Yeah.
Like one of my clients who used to work with the Lakers was talking about, and he was a surgeon for like knees and stuff.
Orthopedic surgeon.
That's the term. Yeah. I just call him the guy who did the operations. But he was talking about like, he's like, oh man, he's like, you want to know how to like not see me? I go, what? He goes, stretch. I go, what? He's like, dude. And he went through this whole thing about how stretching really affected the muscles.
Yeah.
And then they get into balance and they do something. And the next, you know, you tear something and you need to see him. And I was like, nuts. I thought it was crazy.
Yeah.
How something as simple as like stretching was like.
Yeah, that's one of, I think, a good ending point for me is just like a good summary statement is that health is not complicated. Disease management is very complicated. And that, thank God, we have people that are good at managing disease. But the ingredients to health are pretty simple. If your nervous system can communicate at its 100%, say it is, which it's not in the majority of the population is my argument, then the only other limitations to expressing full health are two things: time and or matter. Matter being the nutrition you were talking about. You have to have the building blocks so that the body can assimilate and build health.
Yeah.
You can run out of time though if you start these things too late or you try and put too much matter or something too early. So time is a variable. Matter is the other variable, which every human on the planet that has access can control. But the people that do have access in, like, let's say first world countries can control that in most situations. A lot of our patients or clients in Austin, Denver, South Florida, they're doing the matter thing right. They're eating really, really well. They are at a good age. So the time variable is good. They're in their 30s. But the reality is they're still struggling to heal. And so one of the things that we can do is we help put healing in the right order and help them identify and really ask this question. This would be a question I'd pose to anyone listening. Is anytime your body is not healing, you just need to ask the question, why? It sounds simple, but you need to keep asking why. Why is my body not healing? Why, until you find an answer. And a lot of times that means finding somebody willing to dig with you to keep finding the answer. Meaning if someone doesn't have an answer for you, keep digging, because your body is self-healing. It is self-regulating. It's very good at healing. It just needs enough time in the right matter, in the right communication, and you got a healthy orgasm.
And I think you nailed it too when you said finding somebody to go on the journey, because I see a lot of clients in your chair, you hear a lot of stories, and the one thing I'll say is the impatience with patients.
Yeah.
A lot of some medical professionals just don't want to be bothered with what I would call doing their job.
Yeah.
It's like tough. Asking you anything about your hair. Go ahead. I just start cutting it. And you're like, well, you didn't even ask me what I needed or what I wanted or like why I'm here. Yeah. And
that may be a conversation for another episode.
But I know you and I could have 6 hours of conversation, but we're wrapping this up because your hair's done. Let me know how it works for you. Like, again, so that like you can mess it up as much as you want, dude. Watch. And it's not going, there's nothing that's good.
The real test.
This is,
that'll work on Monday.
Yeah. On Monday, all you have to do is just look, you have a strong cowlick that pushes your hair right through here.
Yeah.
So there's no reason I would try and fight that, because that's how your hair naturally wants to work, right? So work with the grain of your hair and the way it wants to, the areas it wants to move.
You're suggesting work with the body, not against it.
Absolutely. Well, think about so I actually had a client say this. He goes, have you ever thought about do you cut hair like the way woodworkers work with or against the grain? And I was like, shit. So once that question was posed, I didn't have an answer. I go, I think so. Once that question was brought to my attention, it added a new level of awareness of like my intentions behind every time I took a section of hair. And I was like, am I working with their hair?
Yeah.
Or am I working against their hair?
Right.
And the other question is, the things they want, is it working with their hair, which would also cost like their lifestyle, their time that they allow to do their hair, their desires, their goals, right? Are all these things working, or am I just doing something that was purely driven by like, I want this and I want it now? Like the Veruca salts from Willy Wonka, right? I'm like, Daddy, I want to go do this now. With complete disregard for like, it's going to work for that.
Right.
I can give you the haircut you want. The question is, you're going to probably hate it when you go home, when you realize you don't have the skill set to style, right?
Yep.
And once I started realizing that most people probably don't have the skill set that a hairdresser does. Because one, they're not trained in doing hair, right? So they don't have the hours under their belt of doing something repeatedly over and over and over.
Yep.
And the fact that I'm behind you and on the side of you and in front of you and on top, like the vantage point is a much better place, right?
Yep.
And I sort of think like, if I just worked with their hair texture, their hair growth patterns, and the movement their hair is, if I decided to just start working with that and just know and take everything I know about how to manipulate hair through sections and partings and elevations and the way I would move the hair, which tool I use, if I could just mesh that with like, oh, well, here's how the hair works. I actually started noticing that like it was a huge change in my career as a hairdresser with clients. Like, this is the best haircut that's grown out. And I was like, okay, confirmation.
Yep.
Cool.
It's good.
And good old Frank Sinatra was the one who asked me that. I actually had a finding Frank Sinatra. It's awesome. He's a real person. Not the guy who sang the song. But he said that, and I was like, that was like there's people in our lives who say things or ask us questions, not because they're trying to be a dick or they're not trying to teach you a lesson, but they just have their curiosity. And that curiosity question like had like a life altering moment. They didn't have an answer. Right. And I was like, I think so.
Yeah.
So working with the body.
Challenge the paradigm. No, it's good. My lifestyle, I have a speaking engagement this Wednesday. And then I also could be in the woods over the weekend.
That's the thing, man. That's why I wanted you to come in with your hair clean and air dried so I could see what it does on its own. And that gave me so much more insight. It'd probably be like asking, be like you coming to watch me work for an hour. And you'd be like, oh, well, I know where most of your problems are coming from on how you're studying. I know we can correct this and that will probably fix these things. Yeah. But you don't have the time to probably come and watch me work for 8 hours a day. No, you don't. You don't want to. It's. I've actually been sitting down more.
I know. I learned some things here today.
I usually will sit like this.
That's great.
One thing is like somebody told me not to keep my elbows up higher than my shoulders because you're not able to see clearly if they're here. But I also felt that that's really uncomfortable. So like a lot of things, like if I feel like, oh, I have to reach or do this, then the body position is bad. Taking a clue from my body. Like that feels uncomfortable. Let's not do it. Dude, thanks for being on my
podcast. Can we throw some links in your show notes?
Yeah. So if somebody wants to get in contact with you and they're in either Denver, Austin, or South Florida, what would be the best way to contact you?
We have a small town, we care about you provider type atmosphere. And so our clinics have that identity.
So Austin here.
So Austin, we are River City Wellness. In Denver, we are Realign Family Chiropractic. And in South Florida, we are Alive and Free Health Center. Alive and Free, Realign, and River City Wellness. We're working on branding. If you got some ideas, let us know. But those are phenomenal clinics, great places to go. I am the Primal Doc if you want to explore. Instagram,
Primal Doc. So if they want to reach out to you directly, go to your Instagram, Primal Doc.
Primal Doc.
And do you have all your links for your practices on your page?
No, but you can get in touch with me there.
Okay. Yeah. All right. We could have talked about the whole other thing of Sapien Center and all that other stuff, which I just...
lifestyle stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy. So...
yeah, thanks for having me.
Thank you, man. Laters.